The following is a Shaw TV public affairs presentation.
Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Hello, I'm Judy Feinstein and I am here with Andrew Weaver, MLA for Oak Bay Gordon Head. Welcome, Andrew, to your second constituency report. You've now been an MLA for almost 1 year. Can you believe it?
It's amazing. Thanks for having me again. It's been a wonderful experience. It's incredibly rewarding to be able to serve the constituents of Oak Bay Gordon Head and to be able to help people with real problems. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I'm very grateful for being given that opportunity.
So before we go to our first question, we have a short video clip from your response in the House to the throne speech which opened this parliamentary session.
Floods in Calgary and Britain, record droughts in California and Vancouver Island, record-breaking heats and fires in Australia, devastation in the Philippines from Typhoon Haiyan, and in New York from Hurricane Sandy. The list is growing and the problem is getting more and more serious. And I reiterate, yet the politicians squabble. Look around this chamber and ask yourselves what you and your caucuses are doing to address this, the greatest challenge of our time. Are you cheerleaders for the fossil fuel industry and the BC LNG pipe dream? Are you so busy playing the game of gotcha politics that you've lost touch with the reason why you are here?
You were specifically speaking to the liquefied natural gas expansion in BC. Tell us why you felt it was important to emphasize that point.
Well, we've been told in British Columbia that there's going to be 100,000 jobs, a $100 billion prosperity fund, a $1 trillion hit to our GDP, debt-free BC, elimination of PST, thriving schools and hospitals from funding from LNG. The reality is there is not a single company yet that's actually made an investment decision, and we have no backup plan. And while we chase yesterday's technologies, that is the technologies of yesteryear, the fossil fuel industry, we're missing an opportunity that grew and flourished under the previous government, which is the clean tech sector. So what I tried to do in the throne speech is point out that the throne speech was focusing all upon LNG and trying to get credit for reducing Chinese emissions of greenhouse gases by having them use LNG instead of coal. And I tried to point out to them that in fact, it's not really the way we can go forward, because we are actually planning in BC to increase our exports of thermal coal as well. So if you want to get credit for reducing emissions from China by having them burn natural gas instead of coal, then you also got to take a penalty for increasing your export of thermal coal at the same time.
And in your response, you also used a rarely used parliamentary procedure and called for an amendment to this throne speech. In fact, we have another video clip.
I do not introduce this amendment as a matter of confidence in the government. I introduce it as a contribution to the debate about the consistency of the government's vision of an economy that does not unnecessarily burden future generations. The current motion stands as, and I quote, "We, Her Majesty's most dutiful and loyal subjects, the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia, in session assembled, beg leave to thank Your Honour for the gracious speech which Your Honour has addressed to us at the opening of the present session. To this, I would like to add the following amendment, and that the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia recognizes that climate change is one of the greatest issues facing our province, and that this government's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions is inconsistent with the current expansion of US-sourced thermal coal exports coming from British Columbia harbors, and therefore calls upon this government to follow the lead of our Pacific Coast Action Plan partners, Washington, Oregon, and California, and explore all means by which the government may halt the expansion of thermal coal exports in British Columbia."
Andrew, why was that amendment so important, and what was the vote?
Well, again, it was so important. I framed it as not a confidence motion, and why I did that is that I recognize that the government had won an election, and that election was based on delivering of natural gas. However, what was not mentioned was the fact that we're somehow going to change our legislation to somehow try to get credit for reducing greenhouse gases in China through the burning of natural gas. And I thought, well, if you're going to do that, well, really what you need to do, and you're doing that because you're using climate and you're using greenhouse gas mitigation as the justification, then surely you're recognizing that this is a great issue. And surely you want to be consistent. And therefore, if you're going to export LNG and get a claim there for greenhouse gas reduction, you're going to have to take a negative claim for increased thermal coal exports. And thermal coal, of course, is not the coal used to make steel. It is a coal burnt to produce electricity. It's the dirtiest coal. So I put the motion forward, and I was astounded. In fact, I framed the result of this motion because it tells it all. I was voted down 73-1. Every single member in the Legislative Assembly voted against taking steps to limit thermal coal exports in British Columbia, as they have done in California, as they have done in Oregon, as they have done in Washington State. But here in BC, we're open for whatever dirty business we want, and that's a very wrong signal, especially if you're trying to claim reductions and environmental benefits for LNG. So you know, it was, as I said, I framed that vote. I framed that vote because I couldn't believe it. It was, yet here we are today with, you know, a beautifully framed vote and still no action on coal exports. And the province can do a lot in this area because there's Texada Island, for example. Some of the land will require provincial permitting. There's health aspects involved that can be brought forward through the health ministry. There's a number of ways that the province can take steps to limit thermal coal expansions. And this wasn't, I didn't frame this about just saying no. If you go through the website, Andrew Weaver MLA, you'll see that I talked a lot about real job creation in terms of the container transport industry, stuffing and unpacking containers. I visited both Prince Rupert and Port Alberni and discussed there with people at the port facilities the innovative ideas they had for increasing job growth there. So this is not about just saying no, it's about offering alternatives. Rather than shipping coal, let's unstuff and stuff containers and actually add value there in British Columbia, which are well-paid union jobs that keep British Columbians working and move us forward.
And on LNG, can the government deliver on claims like adding $1 trillion to the GDP over 30 years, a $100 billion prosperity fund, and 100,000 jobs?
Well, I mean, the best quote I heard, second to none, was actually done by Preston Manning, bless him. He said in the Fort St. John Energy Conference, "We shouldn't count our chickens before the rooster even enters the hen house." And so, I mean, obviously that means this is ridiculous. And it's worse than that too, because we're putting all of our eggs into this one basket, the LNG basket. As I've said many times, I view this as a Hail Mary pass of hope. That is, the government, like most British Columbians, did not believe that they were going to be elected in the last election. And they wanted to stand for something and give British Columbians something to vote for. So they threw this Hail Mary pass, this LNG dream. I call it a pipe dream for obvious reasons. And it was caught because the official opposition did not offer British Columbians some hope. They didn't offer them a vision. But now we're delivering. But can we deliver is a question. So this is why I've continued, rather than you know, just say told you so, told you so. I've been pushing the clean tech sector, clean tech being the generation, transportation, storage, and end use of clean renewable energy, pushing that as a backup plan, because therein lies long-term stable jobs for tomorrow's economy. And British Columbia has a position that can show leadership. One thing we're really good at, and we don't need temporary foreign workers, is building a talent, or is training a highly educated, highly talented, highly skilled, highly innovative, and highly creative workforce. We have those people here. Now, let's tap into that expertise, and with the clean tech sector, it's distributed jobs throughout British Columbia, not just in one or two locations. And we can do it. So I'll continue to push that and not focus my energy on negative things like saying, I told you so, because we all want the same thing. We all want a prosperous British Columbia for all of us.
And what are your thoughts about Kitimat's recent plebiscite vote on Northern Gateway?
That's really empowering to see the most affected people stand up and say, you know what, we don't want it either. So I'm still looking for people who've said yes on this Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline. Kitimat's a very special place. It is a town that grew because, along with the, now Rio Tinto Alcan smelter, which is undergoing a massive refurbishing and upgrading, very impressive facility, substantially reducing greenhouse gases in the upgrade. They have a very stable economy as they move forward. They have some hope for natural gas industry. But they don't want to risk their harbor, their environment for this Northern Gateway project either. I mean, they're just joining everyone else saying, we don't want it. So I'm not sure who does want it, and this is where we're left with. So good on Kitimat, Mayor and Council. Hope you, I'm sure they will, follow the non-binding advice of your citizenship, and let's move on. I mean, really, at some point, the proponents of the Northern Gateway project should really move on, because I don't know what about no they don't get. It's not just no from the BC Green Party. It's not just no from the official opposition. It's not just no from the government. It's no from every First Nation. It's no from Kitimat. Who's saying yes? Nobody wants this. Can you not get it?
Another controversial issue is the amendment to the Parks Act. This is an example of cooperation with the NDP. Tell us what the Act might imply and how the debate proceeded.
Well, the Parks Act, the problem with the Park Amendment Act is not so much what's contained in it, it's the way it was brought in. And why I say that is the government has argued that it's a housekeeping act. And there is some truth to that. And if you look at it carefully, there's some truth to that. However, the way it was brought in is very troublesome, because it did not have a social license. Unlike the BC Liquor Amendment Act, the Water Sustainability Act, and the Animal Health Act, which were brought in after extensive consultation, this just appeared out of nowhere. And there were some very, odd lack of definitions. Things like feasibility study was defined in, or research. Research wasn't defined, and feasibility was defined in such a broad way that I joked that I could be sitting at home on a Saturday night sipping a beer and watching, a BC craft beer, mind you, and watching a hockey night in Canada. And that, under the rules and definitions, would qualify as me doing research as part of a feasibility study for something in a BC park. So clearly there was some problems with that. But if you'd like me to talk about the cooperation, I'd be happy to talk about that further. Is that both the NDP and I worked together with this, along with Vicky Huntington, to put in a number of amendments to try to hold it back. I actually put in an amendment to send this to committee, which would have forced a consultation process. Unfortunately, all of those did not pass.
And on the topic of grizzlies, can you tell us why it makes no sense to allow trophy killing in the Great Bear Rainforest?
Well, we have a number of coastal First Nations who have worked very closely with forest industry and NGOs to come up with a recent agreement, an environmental agreement for the protection of the Great Bear Rainforest that's been put forward to the BC government. At the same time, a lot of research has been done on the economics of bear viewing and on the actual opinion of a variety of people. 90% of British Columbians say we don't want trophy killing. 95% of hunters believe that if you shoot something, you should eat what you shoot. People don't typically eat grizzly bears. And finally, bear viewing is producing something of the order of 50 times the number of jobs and 10 times the amount of revenue to British Columbia as trophy killing of grizzly bears. And you can't have both living side by side, because a bear becomes accustomed to you and then you shoot it, it's not accustomed to you again. So there's so many reasons why not to do trophy killing of grizzly bears. We're not talking about hunting. We're specifically focusing on an iconic species, much like the orca. We wouldn't go and harpoon an orca and cut off its fin just to stick it on our wall. We actually would view an orca, and industry has grown to take people to view them because we treasure these iconic species. So British Columbians don't want it, hunters don't want it, not sure who does want it. Why are we doing it?
And one more question before we go to break. You've been granted intervener status for the National Energy Board hearings on Trans Mountain Pipeline. In fact, you're the only BC MLA to successfully apply. How did you get that? And can you explain what that means?
Well, it's I'm actually qualified twice. Once as an expert for my background in ocean science and on the economics of the carbon bubble, which we talk about later, and the second one is as a representative of the riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head. So essentially, the rules are there. You follow the rules, you apply according to the rules, and you're very clear as to why you're seeking intervention status. And for my case, there was two main justifications. One is through trying to present evidence and question their experts on their research with respect to the release of dilbit in the ocean, diluted bitumen. The second is I've had a lot of people in Oak Bay Gordon Head which express concern about a potential oil spill response as these tankers go past our beautiful shores. And they want to know what the response of Kinder Morgan and tankers would be to such a response. So I have a duty to interact in that respect.
Okay, we're going to take a short break now, and during that time there'll be contact information up on the screen about how to reach Andrew Weaver, and we'll be back in a moment. And welcome back to Constituency Report with Andrew Weaver, MLA for Oak Bay Gordon Head. Andrew, on community engagement, one of the issues you've focused on in the community is Island Health's new patient care model known as CDMR. Can you explain what CDMR is and why it is so important?
Well, a CDMR is a redesign of delivery of health services in hospitals in the region. It's been in place in Cowichan and Island Peninsula hospitals for quite some time, and more recently, as of last September, in the Nanaimo Regional Hospital. And it's coming into Jubilee and Vic General in April. Now, a number of my constituents, quite a number actually, contacted me with concerns about the quality of health care that would arise as you essentially replace nurses with healthcare assistants and have nurses move towards more of an organizational role rather than a frontline treatment role. And so I didn't know anything about this, so as a scientist, what do? You go and get the evidence. So I was asking and met with a number of people, stakeholders, whether they be Island Health or unions or nurses themselves, to get a sense of what the issues are. And I had a town forum on this, for example, where we had a number of people engage the public on this, answer questions, very informative. The concern is quality of care. It's not, the justification for this is improved quality of care, but it strikes me as there's no evidence to suggest that quality of care will improve because you are replacing skilled nurses with healthcare assistants, and there's quite a different amount of training involved, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that patient mortality, morbidity, returns to hospital, extends length of stay in hospital, are directly related to the amount of quality, high trained care they get. So as you reduce nurses, the others go up.
And our next question is on sewage treatment. You raised this issue with the minister in the last session regarding sewage funding and completion deadline, and you raised it again last week regarding Esquimalt. We have a video clip here of you asking the minister about intervening in Esquimalt sewage plant rezoning.
The question is with respect to sewage. As the minister is aware, Esquimalt Council voted unanimously last night to reject the Capital Regional District rezoning request for McLaughlin Point for the sewage plant there. This comes following considerable public engagement, 4 evenings of public consultation, where only one person spoke in favor of the project, and many, many, many others spoke against it. The public consultation demonstrated that there's little, if any, support for the current plan. My question is this. Considering the CRD currently has no alternative site for the treatment plant, and in fact, Esquimalt have tasked staff with putting together information to rezone McLaughlin Point to not allow a sewage plant there, will the minister reassure residents of the region that the province will not intervene on the zoning unless the CRD proves all other options are exhausted?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I can assure the member that our position remains the same today as it has in the past. The federal government requires that they treat their sewage by 2020. This is an obligation that falls on the local governments. It's unfortunate that they've reached this kind of an impasse. I understand that CRD is meeting this week, perhaps even tomorrow, to discuss the implications. I'm not going to speculate on what might result from that, but we have no plans to intervene. We've said from the beginning that this is an issue that the local governments need to grapple with, understanding that they are the ones who are obligated to begin treatment of their sewage. And so we have no plans to intervene.
Why is it so important to directly get the minister on record?
Well, the reason why I've done this is there's a lot of unfortunate rumors or misinformation out there about what the minister will or will not do. And as I did in the spring session last year, or summer I guess it was, I wanted to get some questions on record about the actual deadline for a plant. And here I wanted to get on record exactly how the minister plans to respond, because, you know, I think everyone in this region realizes that the approach that has been taken to sewage is faulty. We're in a situation where most people, including me, believe we need sewage treatment. Most people, including me, believe that what has led us to where we are today has not worked. And I think most people want to move forward. And I think this is a way of me clarifying for everybody via questions that the minister also wants to move forward, but it's really in the hands of the CRD to move forward by putting to the people of our region, putting to them a plan that they can get behind. And I think they can. I have great faith in our CRD in doing that. I think that it's just time is of the essence. Let's go along there and look at what Colwood's done. Colwood, amazing, have said, you know what? Let us go alone and we're going to build a state-of-the-art tertiary-based treatment facility at a fraction of the cost that we believe it would cost us if we joined your plan, and we're going to get better results. So let's let Colwood do that as they are doing it. Let's watch them and learn from them and move forward together. But, you know, got to get past the fighting, got to move forward, and got to recognize that there's a lot of talent out there in the community, and maybe some decisions have been made that were unfortunate, but it's okay to admit that we go do something different. You don't have to hunker down and defend something that people don't want. It's okay to move forward. It's okay to say I made a mistake. It's okay to say we'll do something different. Let's just get on with it.
And on the topic of youth engagement, you have teaching in your blood. I know you care a lot about youth and the future for youth. And I know how much you enjoy working with students. And despite all the reports that youth are not engaged with politics, do you see encouraging signs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the youth are what keep me going. I mean, I'm going into schools all the time. For example, just this week, tomorrow there's a big event out at Claremont. Next week I'm going into Nanaimo in Wellington Secondary, having a discussion about pipelines there. I was in Lambert Park High School last week. I mean, kids are engaged. They want to get engaged and they're excited about it. We had an entourage show up at our constituency office, defend our future. I mean, these students give you hope. They are so articulate. They know what they want. They know what they don't want, and they're reasonable people. They're not radicals. They're reasonable people, just like regular citizens who don't like the status quo and want to inherit an economy, an environment, social structure that is one that's sustainable and not one that's subject to the boom and bust cycles that we're presently heading on now.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew, how do you connect with people across the province? How do you engage with your own constituents? What do you find is the most effective ways to do outreach?
I found I think I share it with the fact we have a very young group of people working on the team, is that social media is the single most effective tool that I use for communicating with people. We have several thousand people liking our I think it's 3,204 or 5 liking our Facebook page. Twitter, I'm very engaged on Twitter. A lot of others are too, very engaged in our own website, Andrew Weaver MLA. I also think it's really important, if I go somewhere, like when I go to Prince Rupert and the taxpayers funded me to go, if I go somewhere for an extended period, I come back and I write about it and I put my ideas up on the web and seek input by pushing that out on social media, on Twitter, and responding to people. So we're largely paperless. Is a lot of our communications are via the social media. We have a newsletter that goes out. I mean, well, thank you, Judy and Teresa in the office, who've done a lot of work on that. And this is how I think people want it. We have Town Forum, or Fora as well. We've had several of those, and people come out. So we're doing a little bit of something for everyone. I find the typical paper in the door, delivered to your door, is probably not as effective. Too many of those end up in the recycle bin because you come home, you're tired, you go, oh, I want to read that. But with Facebook, with Twitter, with our website, you kind of do it on your own time. It's all there for you, and I find the response is really, really good.
And finally, Andrew, can you tell us what's the best part of your job? Are you having fun? You sure seem to be having fun.
Again, like I said at the beginning, this is the best job you could have in the world. It is one where you get to actually help real people with real problems at the constituent level, and you get to work in areas that are important to society, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The most rewarding is of course engaging with youth and seeing the sparkle in their eyes as they think, you know what, the economy of tomorrow is one that's exciting. It's the opportunities for innovation, creativity, they're all there, and let's embrace it and move forward. And the other excitement is when somebody doesn't get their electricity on, so because it's artificially turned off, to have the Constituent office to be able to turn the lights on literally in someone's home because of a bureaucratic screw up, or helping people access the medical health system. There are so many examples. It is incredibly rewarding to know that you can make a difference in somebody's life. And to be able to do that on a macro scale with some of these larger organizations like Island Sexual Health, or with the nurses, trying to work with them to give them a voice, because I think that's what my role is. My role is to act as a conduit to give people in my constituents and those who felt others a voice to government, and also a voice back from government to these people. So I'm more of a conduit than I am somebody who's ranting in the ledge. I'm a conduit of information to and from the government to try to move us forward, because everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants prosperity, everyone wants a clean environment, and everyone wants our social systems to be sustainable.
And you meet with people in your constituency.
Oh, all the time.
You meet with constituents, you attend events,
Yeah.
You're very engaged in the community.
Oh, well, exactly. And I embarrassed myself just last Saturday throwing the opening pitch at the Victoria Mariners. Great style up front, but it was actually better for cricket than baseball. I threw a lovely googly and into the ground, but unfortunately we were playing baseball, not cricket.
Yeah, but it's an example of how you're out there, you're meeting with people and wanting to hear their concerns.
It's true, and I do respond to much of my email myself. I can't do it all, but I'm in there all the time. I try to do as much as I can myself, and I have amazing people I work with, as you know, in the Constituent office and in the Ledge team. It's not an individual, it's a team, and I've always thought that we are a team in the Oak Bay Gordon Head, not an individual, and you can't do it yourself behind the scenes. You got Taylor, of course, Aldous and Evan down in the Ledge, Matt, communications, Judy and Teresa. It's a great team, and we work as a team, we do well as a team, and we enjoy this job as a team.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you, Judy.
And thank you for watching Constituency Report.